Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. All right, so we are going to cover authority, power, and control. This is something that I have been working on for a while. I talk about it in pieces all over the place, but this is the first time I'm really going to delve into what authority, power, and control is. And All right. So the first thing to know about when it comes to this is there is fruit. Fruit is, in this case, defined as the results. And that is really, really vital to internalize at this point because we associate a lot of pursuing of the fruit without doing the actual things that bring about the fruit. This is equivalent to a person running around chasing fruit, but they're not going to grow a tree. They're not going to nurture the soil. They're not going to shield the plant from the elements. They're just going to run around looking for a fruit. Fruit is control, money, sex, and there was one other thing. I just realized it was the other day. One more thing. Love. I don't want to put love on this. It was something else. I can't remember what it was. But for now, we're just going to keep it there. So this is fruit. And when you have, in this element, you also have energy. Now, a lot of people say that money is energy, and this is where I get really annoyed because no, it's not. Energy, according to physics, is, well, I believe it's momentum plus, let me take a look here. Energy, as defined by physics, is the quantitative property that is transferred to a body. It is literally the transference. That is the best way to explain it, it is the transference. You could almost say it is the current. It is very much the, yes, it is the current that transfers from point A to point B. This is really, it is the transference. And the reason why I say why this is so important is because in the case of money, money just sits there. Now, fruit can grow, so you can put it in the ground. And I'm really going to stick hard with this analogy, is fruit can produce another tree. But energy is the sunlight. It's the soil. It's the nutrients in the soil. It's the water. Without those elements, your fruit is not going to go anywhere. It's going to rot, which is where what happens when we see people hoarding money, which is where a lot of investors or financial advisors will say, your money's not going to go anywhere if you don't put it to work. It's because it's fruit. And this is where we get into energy, transference, currency. Energy is the nutrients. It is the elements that bring about a result. That is energy. It is the elements that bring about a result. Now, authority is choice. Bottom line, it's choice. And you can accept your ability to choose or not. Now, this is now getting into the world of accountability or responsibility. Actually, I'm going to say responsibility here. And furthermore, when I say responsibility, this is what I refer to as owning. So you can have authority, but if you don't own your authority, it's not going to go anywhere. Owning is 100% your ability to choose. It is your choice. Now, whether or not you admit that it's your choice, now we're back to responsibility. So your choice will sit there. But if you're not owning it, it's not going to go anywhere. And the reason why this is so vital to everything is because when we are traumatized or abused, we have the choice to value or prioritize. We can value and prioritize ourselves, or we can value and prioritize our abuser, or we can value and prioritize a loved one. And where you put your value and priority is where you put your authority. So, and this is where you give your authority over to someone. You're not actually giving your authority, you're giving your power. Your power goes to whatever you value and prioritize. So when you choose, your authority is you choosing where you want to put your value and priority, where you want to direct your power. That determines who has power over you. But you ultimately have to make the choice of who to value and or prioritize. So in the case of valuing and prioritizing the self, that means that you are going to put yourself on a pedestal. If you value and prioritize the acceptance of an abuser, acceptance and happiness, let's say happiness of an abuser, that is going to put the abuser, their acceptance and happiness of you, above yourself. This is when abuse happens. And when you value and prioritize a loved one equal to yourself, that is what I refer to as wisdom love. And that's that beautiful concoction that we don't see a lot of. So what you value and prioritize gives power to the self, the abuser, the loved one. But the authority is the acceptance, the responsibility, owning that choice. When you choose to value and prioritize the acceptance and happiness of an abuser, you've chosen to prioritize to put them on a pedestal, and that's why you're being abused. But thinking that we have no choice is literally abandoning your authority. That's not taking ownership over your own authority. You have to own your authority. So your authority is sitting there with you. You've made the choice, but you have to own your authority. So there is a huge difference between owning your authority and abandoning your authority. And by the way, when you have the emotion of abandonment, what you are really feeling is the abandonment of your own authority. That is really what you are contending with. So understanding how all of this fits together is vital in the next part to come here. And again, when you understand authority, power, control, the idea is to understand owning your authority, that by you deciding what you value and prioritize shifts the power, shifts the energy onto whatever it is you want it to have, which is going to give you control. You always have control depending upon where you place your value and your priority. So you have to, in an ideal situation, then this is where we want to get you. Anytime you're healing, anytime we're going anywhere, this is really what we are doing. The goal is to have you own and accept your authority, to shift your value and, well, actually by shifting at your values and priorities, to control your situation. And that is it. That is the magical formula. That is it. Own and accept your authority by shifting your values and priorities to control your situation. Now, this applies to trauma healing. This is it. This is it. And I really want to emphasize that value and priority are the key. By you choosing, and I'm gonna reword this because this is all of it. I every time I have anyone I speak to, once they internalize this lesson, their healing changes game. It is all about you choosing to change your values and priorities to control your situation. I cannot emphasize to you enough how this is it. The reason why trauma happens is because, well, you've chosen to value and prioritize the acceptance and happiness of an abuser. You've chosen it. By doing nothing, you've chosen. You've chosen to do nothing. By waiting for somebody to come and save you, you've chosen to not be saved by yourself. This is all about your relationship with choice, your relationship with what you value and what you prioritize. This is 100% all about your relationship to your choices, your values and priorities. That's all it is. Whenever I have anyone come to me, the very first thing I ask them is, what is your priority? What is your priority? And they'll say, I want to get better. No matter what, I want to get better. Well, there you go. Let's do it then. And we'll get to work and we'll go through it. And it comes down to, I can't. Well, that 100% is your authority kicking in. That I can't, the I can't versus I can. That's your authority. So when somebody comes in and they say, I want X, well, then do it. Well, yeah, but okay, what do you prioritize? I prioritize my healing. Then why is this a hard decision? And what it comes down to is they want X without any discomfort. Every time. Oh, they want to prioritize their healing, but they don't want it to cost them any discomfort. That's not realistic. That is not realistic. It is going to cost you. So now we're looking into economics. This is where I get into economics and I ask you, what is your ROI? What's your return on investment? What's your priority? You're not, the idea that this is going to be comfortable is false. You need to straight away sort out your issue with discomfort because it's gonna happen. You have to choose which discomfort you want. And the question you need to ask is, do you want fast and most painful, but with immediate results? Do you want slow and medium pain, but with slower results? Or do you want no change and chronic pain with no results? Those are your three choices. Bottom line, and there is no getting around this. This is all about you and your relationship to discomfort. You're gonna have to choose. When you come in and you say, I want to change, great. What are your priorities? Now, what's it going to take to get you there? Because your choice is going to be, you're going to have to decide how you want this to go. You can choose fast and most painful, but immediate results. Slow, medium pain, but with slower results. No change in chronic pain, but with no results. Now, almost everyone says to me, I definitely don't want the situation to stay the same. Great. Do you want this ripping it off like a Band-Aid? Or do you want to slowly peel off the Band-Aid? And this is really, how do you want to juggle it? Do you want to do preparations first and then we'll rip off the Band-Aid? Do you want to just jump into the deep end of the pool? Because we're not discussing anymore about if you're going to avoid the discomfort. Now tell me, what's the ratio? Your ability to choose all this comes down to your authority, power, and control again. And we're back to the I can't versus I can. So you've got to wrap your head around this. You can. Now let's change your value and your priority. Do you want to value and prioritize yourself Do you want to value and prioritize the acceptance and happiness of an abuser? Or do you want to value and prioritize your loved one equal to yourself? And I need to clarify your loved one's self versus yourself. Now, that one's later. I'm going to tell you right now, that is definitely part 2 of triadic healing. Value and prioritize acceptance and happiness of an abuser and the self. That really is where everyone needs to start, because it's all about prioritizing and building up yourself first. So getting back to authority, power, control, now that you understand this whole section of it, the next part I want to look into is authority, power, and control in the area of gifting. And this is where we get into trade, bartering, gifting, and networking. This is fantastic for when we get into the emotional transaction, because this is what it is. Emotional transactions of energy. That is 100% what we are dealing with here, is emotional transactions of energy. Now, your authority, your ability to choose, gifting, this concept comes down to one thing: your vulnerability. Vulnerability is a very difficult topic for most people to really process and wrap their head around. We think vulnerability means weakness, and this is a bullshit fucking lie. That is not true at all. What vulnerability really is you're open to receive. It is your disadvantage. This is going to be really, really, yeah. When you have, I want you to imagine that authority comes like this. Advantage, and disadvantage. This is really what this is about. Whenever you come together with anyone, one moment. Okay. This is really it right here. Advantage and disadvantage. When you have authority, power, and control, this is really what is taking place behind the scenes. The understanding of advantage and disadvantage. Vulnerability is the disadvantage. That's all it is. And the disadvantage is disadvantage of authority. So when you come into a situation where you see somebody, you want to discuss anything with them, you have eyed them out. You have drawn an interest towards that person. You are officially at the advantage. You have the authority because you're the one with the plan and the mission in your head. Now that's intimidating. We're going to get into the word and the emotion, intimidation. Let's look up the word intimidation, because this is one of those words where we really need to define it in order to proceed. Intimidation, ooh, intimacy is related to this, is having overwhelm, fright. There you go. Overwhelm or fright. So when you are in a situation with someone where you want to approach them, approaching someone is a status of authority. And that automatically puts somebody in a position of one person is at an advantage and the other person is at a disadvantage. So this is where this is. The disadvantage is intimidated. They're vulnerable. The one with the authority has the advantage. So this is the difference. In order to counterbalance this, there is only one solution. The person with the authority has to kneel. Now, what's happened is you have given advantage over to this person. You have taken disadvantage, which removes intimidation, and you have given them, well, you still have the authority, but you have gifted them with your vulnerability. So you've decided to take the vulnerability and put them in a position of at the advantage. We do this all by saying hello. My name is. Boom. That is everything that is being done in a single introduction. Hi, my name is. We're talking a whole lot of psychological shit in a very, very short frame of mind. Now, this is just in a single networking exchange. But wait, there's more. When you are also in a power of authority, you have other things to consider. You are also, let's get the situation all put back here. This is the case also when you are looking at height, status, wealth. The list goes on. I cannot begin to explain to you how many different aspects are all part of this. And what we see this most of is with parent and child. Oh, no, creation. Parent and creation. Because in this absolute exchange between parent and creation, you have a list of things going on. First, you have age. You may have gender. You have size. You have knowledge. These are all the things that the parent has superior to the creation. So whenever a parent addresses a creation, this is what the child feels: intimidation, vulnerability, they're at a disadvantage. And now you have a parent who raises their voice at the creation. So now let's add in aggression, violence, emotional upset, and in some cases, abuse. It is no wonder that children grow up the way they do, because this is emotionally, psychologically, what is really going on between a parent and a creation. Now let's go ahead and change this around a little bit. Let's assume, and this is something I do with my children, because I know that this is going on, I do this. I still have the authority, but I am giving up the advantage. I'm removing the intimidation. I am accepting the disadvantage. I am giving them the advantage. I am accepting the vulnerability. And now, the creation is now comfortable. Now, in order to pull this off, Socratic method. because I am aware of how the mimic, mirror, repetition works. If I want to teach my child how to be a student, then I must be a student. So I assume the role of student. Every time. I surrender the power of choice. So my children get to decide what food we're going to eat every night. My children get to decide if they want to go someplace. My children get to make all these decisions. I surrender to them, to put them in a position of authority so they can learn how to humanely manage authority while I assume the disadvantage. In addition to parents, this is how a proper teacher should teach. This should be the teacher and the student role. This should be the boss and employer role. I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole nother creature to unpack. But this is the concept. Whenever you have two people in a relationship together, this is where the one who is the most vulnerable, the one who is at the disadvantage, really needs to be the one in charge. Because you are talking about this massive authority, power, control balance. And if you are not aware and sensitive to this, it is not going to work. You have to have an open mind. Socratic method, if you do not know, is to ask questions. You have to abandon all prejudice. And by taking on this behavior, what you're really doing is setting an example. And what happens, and this is the best part, if the student becomes abusive, if the student or the creation steps out of line, you still have the authority. So even though you are kneeling, even though you are assuming the role of student, you still have the power to overcome the child if there's a problem. And this is the really big part that a lot of adults struggle comprehending, is when I say to parents, by the way, this is how I teach parenting in Triadic Healing. This is how I teach students and teachers, or teach teachers. This is what teachers need to learn. This is what parents need to learn, is that the parent, the adult, will almost always come back and say, well, the child will hurt himself. Okay, you're kneeling. You stand up and you protect the child. What's the problem? This is not about protecting the child. This is about, in that example, that is about an adult who is bullying a child to empower themselves. And that, boom, is what is wrong with our school systems today and our parenting, is we've got a lot of adults, a lot of teachers who are using their position of power to bully children so they can feel better about themselves. And now we're getting back into the abuse, the name calling, the derogatory statements, the condescension. Oh my God, that is easily one of the most abusive tactics I have seen from teachers and parents. The condescension, the talking down to. Oh, I remember now. I remember now. I knew it was going to come to me. Ready for this one? Respect. That is a fruit. I knew I had it in there. Control, money, sex, and respect. So if you are a parent or an adult who absolutely throws the word respect around, That is 100% your unresolved insecurity, and you are chasing a fruit. The people who really get respect are the ones who earn it through humanity and kindness. Dictators who abuse never get respect. And this is how this is done. It is understanding authority, power, and control. It is mindfully putting yourself in a position of weakness, of vulnerability, to ensure the safety and security and empowerment of others. I'm going to say again, it is to surrender your advantage so the individual at a disadvantage feels empowered so they can learn and grow without threat, while also learning how to compassionately nurture and teach others. This is compassionate parenting and compassionate teaching. It is 100% you surrendering your advantage so the individual at a disadvantage feels empowered so you can learn and grow without a threat. Now, I am currently undergoing some issues with my partner. He feels threatened. He is very clearly on several different levels right now at a disadvantage, whereas I am at the advantage. In order to make him feel safe, I have 100% submitted to him. And this, by the way, is true submission. Coming from a BDSM mistress, I know what I'm talking about here. This is true submission. It's when the person in authority puts themselves down, surrendering their advantage so that it empowers the individual who is at a disadvantage. But the best thing about all of this is this gorgeous mimic, mirror, repetition learning. And the reason why this is such a huge emphasis on this is because that mimic, mirror, repetition is you setting the example so that while you are presenting yourself as their student, as their creation, they are learning that that is how an individual learns, how an individual is to manage and internalize compassionate teaching, compassionate parenting. Instead, we have a lot of insecure adults who use their power of authority to abuse and lord over their authority to the student, to the child or the creation. And as a result, we are teaching our creations dictatorship. You really want to know what's wrong with the world today? We literally teach our students and our creations the iron fist of dictatorship. Every one of us was raised with dictatorship. Every child has been raised with dictatorship. And we're all looking around going, oh, kids today. Well, yeah, because you raised us on a dictatorship. Cruel, inhuman dictatorship. And in order to turn this around, we have to exercise. We have to exercise compassionate teaching and compassionate parenting by submitting ourselves into this position of assuming the role of creation, assuming the role of student. And I do mean it is going to be as simple as teachers need to start sitting their asses on the floor with the children. It's going to be that humiliating. Yeah. And it needs to be. Every day, my daughter comes home from school and says, it's not fair. They don't hold themselves accountable for the rules that they put on themselves. And I'm thinking, yeah, there's my daughter, not respecting a dictator who's going to set all these rules in place and abuse the children with their name calling and derogatory condescension. And I'm just looking at it going, oh, I can see exactly why. Now, my daughter comes home and she's in charge. Yeah, she's in charge. So is my son. I'm the one with the authority, so I put them in charge. I'm going to let them play authority while I monitor and train them. You decide, and it's fantastic. I don't have to make any choices. They get to decide what's for dinner. They get to decide what needs to be done. We just had a discussion tonight about the laundry. I just did my laundry and I'm asking, what do you want to do? And she's like, look, I just want the laundry soap. I want to do it myself. I enjoy doing it. All right, you're the boss. I will buy you the laundry soap. She's going to pick out the laundry soap. I'm going to buy her whatever she wants and she can do her own laundry the way she wants. Now, a controlling, abusive parent who feels they know better is going to try and enforce their rules because they think they know better. It is not a competition of who knows better. It is about the child learning self-government and accountability. And that's the real lesson that they need to walk away with. But all of this revolves around authority, power, and control, and understanding how authority, power, and control translates into every human interaction between trade, barter, gifting, and networking. And it all is linked into our mimic, mirror, repetition response. So when I start pushing through my triadic healing for schools, triadic healing for parents, the very first rule of thumb is we're going to teach you about authority, power, and control, and you're going to learn about your place. Because if you are a power in authority, if you are at the disadvantage, or if you are at the advantage, well, then your place is on the ground in the mud, lower than the student. Bottom line, because that will show them how a person is supposed to learn from that position. The child will never learn how to be a student properly from a teacher who stands on a podium and talks down to the audience. Thank you so much for being my audience. May the kindest of words always find you.